Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Zero to One. We're really excited about this session, and me in particular, because I've had a good few chats with Audrey over the weeks, and I think she's got a lot of fantastic and useful insights to share with you. We're up to episode 28, which is really exciting as well. We already blazed past the 25 mark in that sense, which we were celebrating recently. And this week's theme is focused on personal brand in particular. And we know that it's a topic relevant to pretty much every member of DOER Circle, whether you're a founder, entrepreneur, whether you're working for an SME and you want to be seen a little bit more, or you want people to understand a bit more about who you are and why they should, connect with you and collaborate and things like that. Or even if you're working in some kind of freelance independent role as well, it's always important to make sure that people can find you and understand, your what value you have to offer. So super excited to have Audrey here. Without further ado, we'll jump into it. So yeah, over to you, Audrey.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jamie, and great to have you guys. Happy Wednesday. If you are here dialing in, we are great and glad to have you. Now, I want to keep this a super interactive workshop. So if you have any questions, right, please pop them into the webinar chat. I will be more than happy to answer them. The goal for today's webinar is really to show you whether you are a doer, a founder, a startup owner, someone who's thinking of freelancing for the first time, right? How you can also build your personal brand with confidence. So I'm going to share my screen right here and we can get started. All right. So awesome. So in today's workshop, I will be showing you how you can build your personal brand on LinkedIn without spending 8 hours a day. I know LinkedIn can be a pain in the butt, right? And sometimes you're like, I don't really want to post content. What should I talk about? Should I talk about the avocado toast I had for breakfast? Right. I'm sure you would have all these questions. And in Singapore, it would be a kaya toast. But like what I said, it's not just about posting for the sake of it. It's about posting with strategy, posting with intent, and posting with a purpose, which is to drive leads, bring authority, and kind of build that revenue stream for your business. And today, that is what we are going to cover. So without further ado, I will dive right in. So my name is Audrey, and I'm the founder of Close with Copy. I run a hybrid human AI copywriting consultancy. So I started my career in advertising, working with brands like Nike, IKEA, and Samsung. But beyond that, I realized that, not every company has the budget of a Nike, right? So what about your startups? What about your SMEs? What are they going to do, right? So I decided to start working with a lot of SME business owners, startup and scale up founders to really scale their business using content strategy, conversion copywriting, and of course, LinkedIn thought leadership, right? And this is also how I started my journey. But if you're wondering right here, Audrey, do I really need a personal brand? It seems like it's it's hard to do and I don't know if I'm going to get anything out of it. Plus, maybe I have a full-time job now. Is it something I really need? So I completely get you. If you are thinking these thoughts, I have been there. And let me tell you a little story, right? So when I started my journey and launched my own consultancy, Close with Copy, I started on day zero with zero leads, zero clients, and zero following. In fact, I wasn't even on any other social media platform. I didn't want to put myself out there. So, like many of you, you might feel a bit hesitant of putting yourself on socials, especially LinkedIn, and I can totally relate to that. So back then, I tried everything. I tried going for networking groups. I tried going on Telegram channels, going to, of course, Fiverr and Upwork, like many of you might have also experienced, right? These are the usual channels that you would think of when you're trying to bring in new leads for your business. And in fact, nothing worked. I was desperate. So I asked myself, Audrey, how much do you want this? And this got me started on day one of my LinkedIn journey. So it was really hard at first for me. Like I told you, I'm not on social media, right? This is my Instagram page. Look, I have zero posts, and you can tell. I probably use it to be more of a stalker than to post content, following cat and dog videos. But you can see that I'm not a social media native in a kind of regular sense. And LinkedIn is a very daunting platform to be on, right? It's a social network, but it's also a professional network. And that's always challenging, right? So initially, when I started posting content, nothing worked. You can see that this one got me 17 engagements. Um, Fast forward to today, I have a much larger following and, of course, a bigger audience. But when I first started, I was like everyone else. Nobody cared. Nobody cared about my content. Nobody cared about what I was posting. So I decided to make that very big pivot, right? And because of that pivot into content strategy, I'm now ranked one of the top creators in Singapore, and I grew from 0 to 50K followers in 2 years. So does LinkedIn work? Yes. Do you rely on luck? No. Can you build a following with content strategy? Definitely. Right. And I also like to say one of my proudest achievements is I made the same list as our president, President Taman, right? And this is the only time that I would say, Mom, I made the same list as my president. So yeah, it's a mini win for me, but beyond really just the vanity matrix, it's really about thinking, okay, what opportunities can I get from this platform? And for me, being on LinkedIn meant being able to unlock opportunity at scale. Speaking with at Microsoft, at DG Marcon with Vogue Singapore, speaking on global summits, and of course, beyond speaking, getting leads for my business and having that kind of security, right? Knowing that, you know what, I have this channel that I can turn to whenever I need to activate leads for my business. And because of this, I have 3x my revenue from when I first started with zero leads, zero following, and zero clients. So think about it, right? LinkedIn is a very powerful platform if you know how to unlock it. And I like to say your personal brand is your personal asset. So you should be thinking about leveraging it right now. So if you are ready to own your personal brand, I am super excited to share more about what we can do together. So today I'm going to show you how you can get your first 10K followers and start generating leads for your business without spending 8 hours a day on LinkedIn and maybe only getting 10 likes. And even if you are not running your own business, even if you have a full-time job, this strategy that I'm going to share today also allows you to build thought leadership and authority, which allows you to unlock more doors for your next step in your career. So whether you are someone who's building a business or happy with your job, personal branding is a key lever of growth. And I'm guessing maybe, Audrey, this is not, my first webinar. I've heard many things about personal branding before. And maybe some of you might have bought courses, but many a times these courses or workshops could have failed you, right? Some of you might have also tried coaching and it could not have worked for you. And some of you might have followed the social media or influencer gurus on LinkedIn who have also failed you. So if nothing seems to be working, it's okay because there is a reason why these tactics didn't really work. And today I want to show you super actionable steps to make your goals possible. And because at the end of the day, I'm not here to sell LinkedIn services. I do that for some clients, but I'm not just another LinkedIn guru. I run my own business. I do copywriting for clients. I run marketing services. And I too, of course, want a constant stream of leads. So it's not about posting content for content's sake, hoping to go viral for the sake of it, but it's really building out the strategy to then funnel leads into your business. And this is what possible looks like. I love inbound leads. This is one of my greatest source of joy whenever I get an inbound request. And I think if you are able to build out your LinkedIn strategy, right, this is something you can expect in the long term, especially because content compounds, right? So imagine if you're just starting out and you have one or two people reaching out to you. In the next 1 to 2 years, you can expect that number to grow. So organic content with $0 ad spend getting you inbound leads. I think it's very worth the investment, if I may say so myself. And I know that with the right frameworks, you can do it too. So who is this webinar for? If you are a business owner who wants to generate leads for your business with content that converts, I will be covering some special tips and tricks. If you are a founder looking to build, a more full funnel content strategy and leverage LinkedIn to direct organic traffic to your brand without spending dollars on ads, or if you are a busy executive who believes in the power of positioning and thought leadership, this is going to help you unlock more opportunities and social capital. So our goals for today, Now, if you're a beginner, I want you to walk away with a framework on how you can launch your personal brand with confidence. And if you are a little bit more experienced, you will learn how you can optimize your processes and save time testing and crafting content for LinkedIn. So here's how you can generate your first 10K followers and get leads for your business without spending 8 hours a day on LinkedIn. Now, the old way of doing things, right? Most people would say, okay, I'm posting content. But my question would be, is your content generating you leads? Are you getting messages that you want to see? Is content for content's sake working for you? These are big questions that you might want to ask yourself. I have met a lot of founders who tell me, but Audrey, I'm already posting on LinkedIn. But when you see their content, there is no strategy. And maybe it gets a couple of likes. Maybe it gets a couple of, people commenting. But it doesn't get them leads because there is no system behind it. So the old way is where you post and pray. You're like, I'm just going to post this today and cross my fingers and see what happens. Maybe you struggle to write content. You don't have something in mind. You're like, okay, what should I talk about today? And then there's that writer's block, right? Or you spend hours commenting on somebody else's post, hoping that, they're going to see your content and comment back. So you can comment, you can engage, but there is a right way to do so and a wrong way to do so. Whereas in my case, I would love for you to think about a much better way of thinking about content strategy. What is a strategic way of content creation, right? Can you build scalable systems and frameworks? And can you put together content that actually attracts inbound? So this is what we want to be focusing on today. So by the end of this workshop, we'll talk about a couple of different things: strategy, a proven system that drives consistent results. Now, again, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the webinar chat. I will be more than happy to answer your questions. So let's make it super actionable for you guys. I will come up with a couple of examples and case studies that I've also seen to make it practical so that you can really see the difference and start implementing it in your business. And the one thing I want you to do today is not just sit back and listen to Audrey. Of course, that's great, but start thinking while I share how you would implement these exact strategies in your case, for your business, for your brand, right? So if you are listening to me, start writing down notes on how you can apply it for yourself, and then you can immediately take action right after this workshop. Okay, so what I'm about to show you is what I have mastered after spending hundreds of grueling hours on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to break it down and distill it into some core concepts for you guys. So if you are ready, let's get started. Now, there are 3 secrets to your LinkedIn success, and I like to frame it as a triangle, right? So you cannot create success without one of these important pillars. You need a clear content strategy. Content without strategy doesn't convert. If you are using AI to create content without strategy, it is definitely not going to convert, right? Just think about that. Let that soak. Just think about putting out content with intention, not just for the sake of it. And the second thing, branding. Now later I will show you some examples, but branding is that emotion you get when you walk into a store. If you walk into an Apple store, immediately it's white, it's clean, it's minimalist, it smells nice. There are very aesthetically, beautiful designs, right? In the Apple shelves, and you get this sense of, okay, this is premium, it feels great. Whereas if you go to an online e-commerce store in Singapore, we have one called Shopee, or if you're from somewhere else, maybe Amazon, right? Immediately there's a sense of overwhelmingness of things, and you want to see like discounts all over the place. And that is also a different feeling that you get, right? When you're entering that space, whether it's a physical space or a virtual space. So branding is how you show up online. What is that feeling what is that feeling you want to convey when people enter your store? In our case, LinkedIn is our landing page and LinkedIn is that storefront. So we want to get that sorted. And finally, the third thing, my favorite thing, copywriting. Now you might think, is copywriting that important? Why can't I just use AI to create content for me? It's just posting content, right? So I can tell you with 100% certainty that if people know that your content is AI generated, it is unlikely that they are going to trust you or interact with you because they know that it's not authentic. But there is a way to blend AI and human copywriting together, but you need to know how, right? And the reason why copy is so important is we are living in an attention economy. If somebody sees your content and they are not instantly hooked by it, they are going to swipe away, right? People's attention span right now, I think it's about 5 seconds. And I know it's less than the attention span of a goldfish. So if you want to hook your reader, you need strong copy. And that is another area that you also need to master. So today we are going to talk about a couple of things, right? How do you build a bulletproof content strategy based on tried and tested frameworks? So no spray and pray, but tried and tested frameworks. How do you brand yourself on LinkedIn without being a professional designer? I'm a copywriter, not that great a designer, but we can still get branding done. And how do you craft high conversion copy that actually converts your audience on this platform? And these are things you want to think about when building up your LinkedIn strategy. So here you might be thinking, but Audrey, wait, I'm not good at LinkedIn. I don't even know where to start. My bosses are on this platform. My ex-colleagues are here. Where do I begin? So even if you don't feel as confident or comfortable now, know that the first step is always the hardest, but once you overcome this, it's going to get easier and easier. Just like going to the gym, right? The first day you go to the gym, you are going to drag your butt there. But after that, once you feel good and you realize, hey, it's not that hard, you're going to keep going consistently, and that's where you see the before and after transformation. So, like what I said, when I first posted content, no one cared about my posts. But I also grew significantly in just 12 months by learning, testing, and optimizing. So, these are a couple of things that you want to do as well. Firstly, you want to think about experimenting with formats, right? What are some formats on LinkedIn that you can play around with? For example, a carousel, a video, a photo only post. These are different formats that could resonate differently with your audience. You also want to play with copy and hooks. What is that first line that you open up when you're writing a piece of copy, right, on LinkedIn? What is that first line? For example, if you say something like, I quit my 9 to 5 and made X dollars in the next month. That is a very strong hook, right? You're already appealing to people who are thinking of quitting their job and who want a higher pay, right? So hook your audience in. Think about that as well. Now you must also figure out what is that content funnel? What does that look like? Driving people from the top of funnel to mid of funnel to bottom of funnel. That is a marketing strategy that we can also cover. And then also learning about, what are some top performers? Why did these types of posts perform better than others? And then figuring out how can you optimize your own content with the top performers. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you can always recreate success. So think about that. Finally, tracking and optimizing. Now, if you put a piece of content out there and you don't look at it again, you will never know if the content actually worked or not, right? So going back to that piece of information is extremely important because it helps you to understand, did this post reach the right audience? Did it get the right engagement? Why did it succeed? Why did it flop? So you want to be tracking all these data and metrics. So experimenting with formats, right? So over here, I had two different giveaways. So I did a 12-day Christmas giveaway where every single day I was doing a Christmas collaboration with a different creator. And then I did also a single ebook giveaway about mastering AI. Now, you might think that the 12-day Christmas giveaway actually got me more impressions, but by the end of both experiments, I actually got more impressions from one single ebook giveaway compared to 12 days of Christmas giveaways. So the value of the ebook was so much more significant than the value of a carousel type collaboration post. So experimenting with formats allows you to understand what works better with your audience and what can you do to continue this success. Okay? And then playing with copy. Now, as a copywriter, I had to tweak the headlines of one of my posts. Why? Because at that point in time, LinkedIn had a glitch and I didn't know if it had posted my carousel. So one thing I did was change the headline or the hook of every single post whenever I re-uploaded it. Because as a copywriter, I have this tendency to try new hooks, right? And interestingly, of the three posts, all of which was posted at the same time, you can see here that they all have different hooks. But the hook that actually outperformed everything else is this: how to optimize LinkedIn like a pro. So the how-to type hooks actually work a lot better on the LinkedIn platform compared to other types of hook. And that again is an insight that you can only get after testing and experimenting. Okay, so next thing. I'm not sure if you are all aware of the content funnel, but I like to use a marketing funnel when it comes to LinkedIn content. A lot of people who are non-native marketers might not use this framework, but this framework is highly effective when you are trying to generate leads for your business. So there are three main parts of the funnel you can consider. Top of funnel, which talks about awareness. In this case, your goal is to drive visibility through your content, right? For example, viral content, trending topics, the latest news, free resources. These types of content will bring in the most amount of traffic. But my question is, if someone is coming to me because I talk about the top 10 AI tools, do you think they are actually looking to work with me personally? Probably not, right? They are here because of the free resource, the trending topics. They want value, but it doesn't mean that they trust you yet, nor does it mean they want to buy from you, which is why you need to move them down the marketing funnel. And the second part of it is the mid of funnel, where it's all about building authority through educating your audience. So over here, how-to guides, video walkthroughs, thought leadership posts, content that demonstrates your expertise and authority. These types of content will get people to understand that, hey, Audrey doesn't just talk about viral posts every day. She actually knows what she's talking about, and she knows how to build content strategy that converts, right? So I'm educating them, and by the time they hit the bottom of funnel, this is where I'm starting to share client case studies, testimonials, things that prove that my work has worked, right? So talking about the founders that I have worked with, talking about mistakes that I see people make, talking about success stories of clients that I have also enjoyed working with. These will be your bottom of funnel content. If you go out and start posting today with only bottom of funnel content, the problem is that most people are not going to care. So the only way you can bring people to your profile is to think about the top of funnel and really think about how best can I get eyeballs, and then start to nurture them and bring them down the funnel until they are finally ready for conversion. I have a client who was one of my biggest clients. He actually followed my content for 7 months. So for 7 months, he did not engage with any piece of content. He did not even say hi. 7 months later, he reached out and said, I have a project, let's chat. And he became one of my biggest clients. So does this strategy work? Yes, it does. But it does require consistency. It does require patience. Okay? So, the fourth thing you want to do is to learn from top performers. You can also install a tool called Clio that allows you to learn from top performers. So, I like to figure out what are some top posts by other creators in my same space. However, I do not want to copy them. The goal of understanding top performers is not to copy someone else's post. The goal is for you to understand, why is it working, why is it not, and then take the elements that creates its success and recreate it with your content, your unique perspective, and your take. So learn from the best, understand what makes them unique, and then recreate that success for yourself. Finally, of course, it's to track and optimize, right? data is important. So you would want to download the kind of matrix that you get from LinkedIn. And then what you can do is also ask ChatGPT for some help. Tell me more about my top performers. What are my best days for posting? Have you seen any insights? Can you tell me more about that? So learning to look at your data also allows you to re-optimize your content. So use ChatGPT to visualize your data, or Claude, get it to download your data from LinkedIn, get it to recreate, certain graphs that you want to track. And then that gives you a very clear idea of what is working, what isn't, why something is working, why something isn't. And that allows you to really learn from your past experiences, build on it, and then create something better. So Jonathan Rayner actually went from not having a clear content strategy to having a great one. As you can tell, before his posts were very personal. It's just his LinkedIn looks like Instagram, right? And after that, he built a very, very solid content strategy with clear branding, clear content, clear value for the audience with the top, mid, and bottom of funnel approach. So the before and after makes a huge difference, right? So you need to think about what is that strategy instead of just posting content randomly and hoping something sticks. Right. So you don't need to post and pray. You don't need a large following. You don't even need to be a strategist. You only need consistency. You need a clear strategy, and you need proven frameworks that work that you can also learn from. All right. So the next question that I get very often from clients is this: Audrey, I'm not a designer. How do I build a brand? I don't know what to create. How does it work, right? So I myself am not a designer. I'm a copywriter and I'm much better at writing than designing. But what I know was important was to create a distinct brand identity, right? That people can remember. So even right now, I'm wearing the color red because I believe in staying consistent and creating that brand image in people's minds, right? So over here, you can see that all of my posts has a certain red/orange kind of brand look and feel, and it helps me to create this impression in people's minds. The colors that you choose should also reflect your brand values, your brand personality, right? So if you're going again into an Apple store versus if you're going into IKEA, one is white, clean, minimalist. The other is warm, friendly, colorful, very different look and feel. You want to find that distinct branding for yourself. Okay? So here's the framework. You want to figure out what are your brand colors. I strongly advise you to stick to 3 colors. Don't go more than that. Of course, some people have done super colorful profiles, which is completely fine, but make sure that you stick to the same color palettes whenever you're creating content. You also want to optimize your profile. Your LinkedIn page is your landing page, so make sure that everything is optimized. You have one chance to make a good impression, and that chance counts, okay? And you also want to use, create repeatable templates. So when I'm building out my carousels now, I have a certain framework, and all I need to do is get my team to apply that. Also, your branding, right? Your branding needs to be consistent. If I'm doing red today, I'm not going to go out with a black and white post tomorrow because that will be completely off brand. And you finally want to leverage tools like Canva. I'm not a designer, but Canva has many great options for non-designers to also get started. So define your brand color palette and fonts. So I chose a very clean, minimal font, very sharp, but also not too cursive, not too childish or kiddie, right? I want it to be sharp, like how I am with my words when I write copy. And I also added social proof as featured on with a couple of logos as well as Fabicon's badge, right? So being able to define your brand color palette and fonts is the first step. Then you also want to optimize your profile. So for LinkedIn, you actually have the option of optimizing your featured section. Your featured section is a section where you can add different links. In this case, you could add a newsletter, you could add a book or consult link, a portfolio, or an ebook. right? So I have, in this case, added two different links where I have an offer and I also have a newsletter. But I regularly update my featured section depending on what I'm trying to push. And as you can tell again, the brand colors are also unified. So think about how you want to optimize your profile with this branding in mind. Okay, so again, you don't have to be a professional. You can use tools to help you get there. Then you also want to create repeatable templates. I post carousels about twice a week or thrice a week even. So I have a specific format that I can just copy and paste on Canva and just replace the content and visuals. So you want to start building out a database, right, of carousels, cheat sheets, single image, quote, ebooks, and now you have a library of templates that yourself or your team members can then use to create content consistently. I also like to apply the brand guide to multiple formats. So this was a conversation I had with Charlie Hughes, also another great creator. And you can see I added a bit of my brand logo and of course my brand fonts, even in the kind of captions, right? You don't have to, but it really helps you to create that distinction. It helps you to help people have a better brand recall, right? So all these things, however small they may seem, when you add them up, they actually help you to build a very strong bulletproof brand. Okay. Finally, like what I mentioned, leverage tools like Canva for design and tools like Descript for video editing or Riverside for podcasting. These tools help you to make life so much easier. And if you go to Canva, you can even type in LinkedIn carousel. They do have templates for LinkedIn and they already have frameworks that you can just copy and adapt. But remember to add your own spin, change the colors, change the font, make sure it's unique, and make sure it's true to your brand. So if you are someone who is perhaps a finance person, a CFO, you might go for colors like black, green, and white, right? If you are someone who's more in the creative space, you might go for something more colorful like pink, green, yellow, right? So being able to choose your brand colors really matter because it reflects your personality. It gives people that impression of what you are like, why they should work with you. Do they trust you? Do they care about you? What do they remind you of? These are things you always want to think about before even posting content. Okay, so Lara, for example, she went from something as plain as this, which is a great starting point. She has some blue, she has some white. However, when you look at her profile, there is a sense of, okay, I'm not sure I know what she does. That's number one. And I'm also not sure if I trust it because of that, more vibrant kind of font, right? Which could seem more artistic. On the other hand, after we revamped it, you can see now it's just sharper, it's cleaner, right? When you look at it, there is that sense of trust. Immediately, when you want to think of an expert, you would probably choose option two compared to option one, even though they are the exact same person. And that is the power of branding, that is the power of positioning, right? So this is an example. So you can see here that we have updated her profile photo. It's a lot sharper. You have a solid gradient behind that also helps her face to pop. And then you also have a call to action and you also have a very clear value proposition helping people overcome regulatory, cultural, and the competitive barriers in Korea. So very specific. Whereas if you take a look at the first banner here, you wouldn't even know that she specializes in that unless you read her headline. So optimizing the banner already gets people to, oh, I know what you do. Okay, if I have 5 seconds on your profile, I need to know what Audrey does. I need to know what Laura does, right? So you want to be able to think about that. Similarly for Jose, this is what we did for him. Of course, it's great to have a social proof banner where it's a picture of you speaking. I've seen a lot of my clients, founders who do that. However, if LinkedIn is your landing page, you are missing the opportunity to sell something. So this is prime real estate. And if you are trying to drive leads for your business, people need to know why they should follow you, what's in it for them, and quickly understand, your value. So instead of having the black and white image, we swapped it to the other image for a bit of vibrancy, but at the same time, we also included what he does. I help first-time founders build investable companies with a certain framework, right? So again, a lot clearer, a lot sharper. You immediately know what he does. And of course, his following also grew as his positioning grew. Stacy as well. Stacy went from bridging the gap. If you could win business clients and earn non-interest income for your bank or credit union, would you start today? This is great. However, it is also a little bit less clear, and the branding in terms of colors could be a lot tighter, right? So if you think about Stacy, you want her to pop. And the thing that popped for us was her pink color top. So you should be owning the color pink because on LinkedIn, not many people dare to own this color. And this gives her that added advantage. So again, it's a lot clearer now, guiding fintech sales from chaos to close predictably for founders and early stage sellers. A lot sharper, a lot punchier, and the branding is also so much stronger. You can see the difference, right? The before and after is a world of difference. So you don't need to be a designer. You don't need to be great at Photoshop. You don't need to spend 100 hours trying to work, and figuring out what's next for you. But what you need is a clear brand refresh. You need the right tools. You need bold and repeatable frameworks. Or you can work with a professional to at least get your first layer of branding sorted, like how I have done with some of my clients. Because once you get that sorted, then you can start building a strong personal brand and a strong profile. Now, the final part of the triangle, remember we talked about the triangle, is the copy part. And you're like, Audrey, I don't have time to write posts on LinkedIn. I hear this a lot, okay? And I myself would have said the same. In the past, I used to spend 2 to 3 hours, not joking, trying to craft one post on LinkedIn. And I was editing and editing. What should I say? What should I write? What is the hook? Is this too long? Should I add an emoji? Do hashtags matter? I've been there, done that. So I know that it can seem very daunting, and you might think you don't have time at all to write posts on LinkedIn. So it used to take me a few hours, or even before that, 3 long weeks to craft a post. And this is really, I know, a problem that a lot of people face. But now, writing my personal story posts and even expertise based posts takes me minutes, right? So you can see a lot of these are very powerful and punchy, but when you look at the post copy, it's also structured in a way that's optimized for LinkedIn mobile. So most people on LinkedIn are not on desktop, right? Most of us are on our mobile phones, which is why the copy that is short, the copy that is sweet with a lot of space works a lot better. Whereas if you were to type, a chunky three-liner, if you were to see on mobile, it's going to take up the full screen. So that is something you want to avoid, right? Because you're going to lose your audience if you're not structuring your posts correctly. So you can see short sentences, a lot of breathing space, the use of bullet points, bolding fonts, all these help in the readability of the post. So a couple of frameworks you can consider. I like to use the human AI approach, right? When it comes to writing content, it's not 100% AI, but it's also not 100% human. And this hybrid approach helps me to save so much time, right? I also like to leverage ChatGPT for ideas. Sometimes when you're stuck, it's good to bounce ideas off AI. You also want to, like what I keep repeatedly saying, use proven frameworks and templates. You don't have to recreate everything. Just learn from the best and recreate that success for yourself. Of course, mastering prompting is a part of the human AI approach. If you know how to prompt and build your own GPTs, that saves you so much time. And like what I said, building your own AI assistants. So the first thing you want to do is to think about the human AI strategy, right? If you have content that doesn't have a strategy, do you think it's going to convert? If you have AI content that doesn't have a strategy, do you think it's going to convert? Right? Probably not. So you need to think about what are my core content pillars? What is that value proposition? Even before crafting your copy. Every piece of copy I write, I understand my user psychology, I understand my target audience's pain points, and then I craft the copy with the help of AI. So you can also leverage ChatGPT for ideation. Over here, I have built a prompt that actually combines a couple of things: content buckets, funnel stage, hooks, a one-liner description. And I give it a context of who am I, what I do, what my company does, what I talk about on LinkedIn, who is my target audience. And I even gave it a matrix where I have the 3 content pillars, the funnel stages, the content types, and a whole list of proven hooks that have already worked on LinkedIn. So building a prompt like that, right, allows you to leverage AI to then give you something like this: theme, funnel stage, content bucket, hook, and your one-liner. So for example, copywriting, top of funnel. Please stop doing X in copywriting or when you're writing copy, right? And then here's your one-liner. Okay, you need to write a post about challenging copywriting norms. Okay, that's a good idea. Maybe a mid of funnel type post, steal my 7-step copywriting formula, a step-by-step guide, right? And then I can turn this into a carousel. Don't copy everything you see. Think about it critically. Okay, I'm a copywriter, but please don't copy everything. Um, Add that human touch, right? Is it relevant? Does it make sense? Is AI giving you the right content? Think about it even before you use AI, but it actually helps you speed up that process so you don't start from a completely blank page, right? So prompt AI with proven frameworks. If you have a system, certain format that has worked for you, turn it into a template. Ask AI, this is a template I like. Today I want to talk about my entrepreneurship journey. Can I tell you a couple of things? And then you combine the templates with your stories to then create something that is yours, but also proven to succeed on this platform, right? So you want to also think about what are some ways that you can prompt. I won't go into this today, but there are multiple ways to prompt for great copy and multiple tools that you can then use to start building your own assistants, to start thinking about crafting content in a smarter way. So I love ChatGPT. Right now, I am using my own custom GPTs for just about everything, and it has helped me to craft actually 90% of the LinkedIn copy that you see right now. Of course, I'm not just saying, please write a post for me. I'm telling it, these are my thoughts, these are my insights, this is what I've learned. Now turn it into a post, right? So the human touch is incredibly important. AI just helps me to put them together in a nice package that is optimized for the platform. So even using a tool like you allows you to build your own smart assistant, and you can pick from different models. So if I like Claude, I can go for Claude, or if I like ChatGPT 4o, I can just switch to it. And this allows you to toggle between different models, take a look at the output, and see what works best for you. So over here, I have different writers, and I can then use them to craft my content for me. So I wrote this post with the help of AI, and you can see it's very human sounding, right? There were so many moments in my career where I felt like nothing was working. Very relatable. All my pitches fell through, clients wanted to cut budgets, getting no's on my sales call. And then it goes to the emotional storytelling part. I was desperate and overwhelmed. I tried doing X, Y, and Z, waiting for something to happen. But here is the kind of storytelling switch, right? Then I realized I could be the change. How? By focusing on the next best thing. So this is in a storytelling arc, the narrative where you're going from everything is failing in my life to spark to the hero's journey, right? So even when you're using copy, you're telling a story and you want to captivate the reader as you tell the story. So here is when you went up, and this is the value add for the audience, taking one step forward, setting tiny goals, celebrating every win, seeking support from my community, because life is about progress, not perfection. This is written with the help of AI. So again, very human sounding. It sounds like me. It's from my real experiences. I'm just not spending 3 hours trying to write this post. Saves you so much time if you know how to do so. So there are many things you can do with the help of AI, but you definitely need to add that human touch, right? So you don't need to be a copywriter. You don't need to be salesy with content. You don't even need to be afraid of the writer's block. What you need to do is to find a content framework that works for you, You need to make your writing personal. It's a personal brand after all, right? And you need to leverage the right AI tools and prompts. So that's the three secrets to success, right? Mastering content strategy, building a clear, consistent branding for your brand, understanding copy that converts. Now, if you bring those together, there is no reason why you will not succeed. You have a strong foundation, you then build the architecture, which is your branding, and then copy becomes, the way that you build the house, right? And that's how you really build something that is sustainable in the long term. So here's a recap again. If you want to take a screenshot, now is also a good time, but think about really experimenting with formats, defining your branding, using a human AI copywriting approach to approach things. There are also, 1 billion profiles on LinkedIn right now, and you are thinking of this 1 billion profiles, how many people are actually creating content? There are 300 million active users, and you know what? Only 1% of this 300 million active users are creating content. So think about that, okay? There is a blue ocean right now. You have the opportunity to create content. You have the opportunity to build your brand. And before LinkedIn gets saturated, like TikTok or Facebook or X or YouTube, there is a window where you can grow a lot faster than everyone else because we are still in the early stage. So you want to capitalize on this opportunity. You want to start building before anyone else. And this is something that is going to compound for you. I love organic content because the more you invest in it, the more it will pay you back in returns. And this is one of the best investments that I have personally made. So if you're still on the fence, I want to say your time is right now. Think about building your personal brand. Think about starting today. And if you have any questions, let me know or feel free to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. So, yes, this is what I wanted to share today. Any questions from the floor? Feel free to pop it in the webinar chat. If not, over to you, Jamie.
Oh, it's fantastic, Audrey. Thank you so much for sharing it. I had a couple of questions, just maybe to get started before some others add some in as well. One of them was when you mentioned about the templates. I think it's a great framework for how to create them. I was wondering, I guess maybe I'm thinking about it from an early point of view, but is it reasonable enough to share those again in the future? Like, could you in theory say, okay, I'm going to post a particular template ebook or something like that, and then a month later you could share it again, or is that kind of absolutely no in that sense? It has to be new content.
Yeah. The great thing about LinkedIn is not everybody is here every day. So most
Yeah.
people will be here once every week, perhaps. And a lot of people like to recycle their content. So if you have something that's a top performer, you can resurface it 3 months later. It would be as fresh as it was 3 months ago. One other tip is you could repurpose an original piece of content, but change up the hook, right? That again gives it a new reason for people to read, and it could attract a different type of audience. That helps. And a final tip that I have is you could also do collaborations with other creators. One hack that I have is if you have a top performing piece of content and another creator has created something similar with a different take, then you can just combine both of your content pieces and go live in the same week. That amplifies the reach on both ends and creates that community of support and collaboration.
Love that. Yeah. And just as you said that, it made me think a little bit about, if you think about books, right? Authors release books and then they maybe some years later they release another update, right? To say, okay, this now reflects how something has changed, the industry's changed. So I guess even if you said like this is the ebook that was so popular before, but now it's been updated to reflect, I don't know, a new law change or whatever it might be related to the content. So yeah, I think that sounds like a because I think the thing I'm always thinking about with this when we talk to members is how can it be something accessible for them to do?
Yes.
Like you mentioned at the beginning, obviously not spending 8 hours a day on it, but I think there's obviously a lot of value that people have to share. It's just putting it into a structure that it doesn't feel overwhelming, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe one other question that I can answer that I typically get right from people is, if I'm a founder, what do I do? Like I have my company page and my personal page. What do I invest in? So there has been a recent research paper that was published by another LinkedIn creator who commissioned his own research, and they found that only company pages only take up 2% of your LinkedIn feed, which makes sense because LinkedIn wants you to pay to play, right? They want companies to start monetizing, on their platform, which also means that if you were to post content only on your company's page, there is a high chance that it has very limited reach. So leveraging your personal brand together with your company brand then gives you that kind of consolidated effort where you're not just relying on one channel, but basically diversifying your outreach. I have one example that I can also share here. So let me see if I can pull it out. But basically, it was very interesting where we had a case study of another company that combined both their personal company and creators brand together. So this is just maybe the final example I will share before we wrap things up. Over here,
Mhm.
you can see that there is a startup, right? They launched, and this was the LinkedIn post that they put out, right? And you can take a look at the number of reactions they got. They got almost 10K people reacting and 348 reposts. Would you think that this is a company post, a personal post, or a creator's, sponsored post? What do you think, Jamie?
I would think a personal post, to be honest, just because of the amount of reactions and everything. But
Yeah, and
it's
you're absolutely right, right? It's actually the founder's launch post. So a startup founder who is not an influencer, who is, someone who's running his own business, managed to get this amount of reaction and engagement. Why? It is again content strategy. So Canon runs Icon, an AI UGC ad creator. And what they did was they had a three-pronged kind of influencer strategy where the founder became an influencer, where top creators like Ruben and Adit would repost the company's launch post, and then micro creators then supported it with their own content. So this created a full-on ecosystem, and everything was timed to be launched on the same day so that it would maximize the brand's reach. So they also then got other creators to engage with his posts to artificially boost his profile, which is very smart, right? So you can think about LinkedIn not just as a social platform, but as a media channel. And if you're able to
mm,
leverage, different things, you can then also drive results for your business. So their second launch got them 5,000 inbound leads, 1 million website visits, 10 million views across socials, 50K reactions, and Fortune 500 customers. Very, very powerful strategy. I was following them very closely, and they use LinkedIn in a way that is a lot more advanced compared to other companies on this platform. So the potential is endless. You just gotta start thinking about LinkedIn in a different way.
yeah, I 100% agree with you. And even just you mentioning about it as a media platform, if we think about anyone here who's an entrepreneur starting a business, often you're going to have to maybe think about spending on advertising, and usually you would pay for your ad to be placed in a certain place. But if you're commenting on other people's posts, then it's almost a free placement in a sense as well. So you can leverage other people's profiles at least while you're building your own as well alongside that. Um, we do
Yeah.
have a question in the chat, by the way, so I thought we'll just jump to that as well. So Kavi was asking, how does someone who is part of a startup or new business, but not the founder, develop their own personal brand while still representing the company?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Keva. You're wondering if I'm still, with a company, would it be wise for me to start posting content? I actually know of some creators who have a full-time job in one of the big Fortune 500 companies, but still posting content. So how you navigate this conversation is two ways. You could either be very intentional about posting content that represents your interests without pitching anything. Which, for example, if you are working for a company but you're interested in sustainability, there is It's absolutely fine for you to post content about, the latest sustainability report, things you have seen in your company or beyond, or even in your personal life, right? You can still talk about something you're passionate about, and this already starts bringing you the right people who are interested in the same topics so that eventually you can pitch to them or you can unlock doors with recruiters who are looking out for sustainability focused folks. That is one way. The second thing is you can have an honest conversation with your company if they're open to it and say, hey, I think LinkedIn is a great asset for your business. I would like to be one of the key voices and the key opinion leaders here, and I'm willing to use my content to drive traffic for the team. Regardless of which approach you take, putting yourself out there already gives you an asset that you own. So even when you leave, the followers who follow you, who see your content, belong to you, not your company. So I think it would be wise to consider both of these approaches, but the most important thing is to get started as early as possible.
Yeah, fantastic answer. I mean, yeah, I would just sort of say, like, I remember in my career earlier on, we would we would get pressure sometimes from management saying, you have to say certain things or you can't say certain things. I think realistically, obviously, you're not going to say anything which could be seen to be damaging to your business, but there still should be a space for you to be, personal. It's your LinkedIn profile, and as you mentioned, Audrey, you take it with you wherever you go. So it's not unreasonable for you to also share about the things you're passionate about on there. So absolutely think there's some great advice, and that transparent conversation, sooner the better. Oh, we have another question coming in. Are we okay just for a couple of minutes, Audrey?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So Jay has asked, if someone has very little experience or achievements, how can they still build a compelling brand on LinkedIn, especially for students as well? So we've got some
Yeah.
interns working with us at the moment.
Yes. So if you are still new to, your career, but like everyone started as a student, right? So when I first started and tried to look for a job in advertising, I wanted to be in one of the top creative agencies in Singapore. And I didn't have a portfolio because I had no experience. What I did then was to build my own portfolio up by doing my own creative briefs. So you can always take the initiative to create your own portfolio, to still have, post your thoughts on certain things, or if you have noticed certain trends, like if you're interested in mid-journey as a tool, right, and you are a creative, you can already say, look at what I've done with mid-journey over the weekend. I experimented with XYZ. This gives you the ability to put yourself out there even before anyone else has done so in your kind of age group, right? So you putting yourself out there, creating your own briefs, sharing your own experiments, talking about your own insights, even if they are not part of a company's work, it already sets you apart and showcases initiative. So that is something that you can do as well.
Yeah, 100%. And the reality is if you are going to go to recruiters or even job applications in the future, that one of the first places that people will look is your LinkedIn profile. And I think if your profile is even 20% better than the average, then it's going to stand out alongside your experiences or your education and things like that. So yeah, 100% support that. Great. Just wrapping up, Han, do you have any questions on your side or no?
Yeah. Maybe I can just Han, you were gonna say something?
I was yeah. Yeah, I'm all good right now.
Yeah. So I think the most important thing is like I always say like the best time to plant a tree was 5 years ago. And the second best time, you probably already know the answer is right after this webinar. So if you are on it, if you're listening to it post us doing this webinar, just take the first step. DOER circle is all about doing it. So take that first step, just do it. And I promise you, you will see results if you stay consistent, if you keep experimenting, and if you're not afraid to try and learn.
Of that. Yeah. I already have some ideas of what I'm going to do in my profile as well after the call. So thanks, Audrey.
Awesome. Okay, thank you everyone. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to chat there as well.
Great. And thanks everyone. Hopefully see you on the next episode as well. Take care. Bye.